The SMS Arminius stands as a testament to 19th century naval innovation. This ironclad warship, named after the famed Germanic chieftain, embodied Prussia's ambition for a powerful navy. Arminius's story is one of evolving naval technology, international intrigue, and Prussian naval aspirations. From its construction in the shipyards of England to its service in multiple conflicts, Arminius left an indelible mark on naval history. Arminius's significance lies not only in its own service, but also in its reflection of a pivotal era. It witnessed the rise of ironclad warships and their impact on naval warfare. Its story illuminates the growing pains of the Prussian Navy as it sought to establish itself as a force to be reckoned with on the world stage. The story of SMS Arminius begins not in Germany but on the River Thames. The warship that came to be SMS Arminius was designed by Captain Cowper Coles, a British Royal Navy officer and advocate of turret-armed ironclad warships. Arminius was nearly identical to the Danish ironclad Rolf Krake, also designed by Coles. Arminius was 202 feet 1 inch long at the waterline and 207 feet 5 inches long overall. The ship had a beam of 35 feet 9 inches and a draft of 14 feet 2 inches forward and 14 feet 11 inches aft. She was designed to displace 1,653 metric tons or 1,627 long tons, but at full load, Arminius displaced up to 1,829 metric tons, 1,800 long tons. The vessel was constructed with transverse frames and constructed with an iron hull which contained 8 watertight compartments. As was common for warships of the period, she was fitted with a ram bow. A naval ram is a weapon fitted to varied types of ships dating back to antiquity. The weapon comprised an underwater prolongation of the bow of the ship to form an armored beak, usually between 2 and 4 meters or 6 to 12 feet in length. This would be driven into the hull of an enemy ship to puncture, sink, or disable it. The ship's crew consisted of 10 officers and 122 enlisted men. She carried a number of smaller boats, including 2 pinnaces, 2 cutters, and 1 dinghy. Arminius was not a particularly successful design. She suffered from severe, fast rolling, especially in heavier seas. She also shipped a great deal of water over the bow and was unbalanced in steering. The ship turned rapidly to starboard, but was sluggish in turning to port. The ship was required to have the rudder at 15 degrees to port in order to remain on a straight course. It was also impossible to control the ship with only sail power. The ship was powered by a single 2-cylinder, single-expansion steam engine built by J. Penn and Sons, Greenwich. The engine drove a single 2-bladed screw propeller that was 13 feet in diameter. 4 coal-fired, transverse trunk boilers, each of which had 4 fireboxes apiece, supplied steam to the engine. The boilers were also built by J. Penn and Sons, Greenwich, and were arranged in a single boiler room. Limited electrical power was provided by a single generator which supplied 1.9 kilowatts at 55 volts. The ship was equipped with a schooner rig with a surface area of 540 square meters. The propulsion system was rated at 1,200 metric horsepower, 1,200 imperial horsepower, and a top speed of 10 knots or 12 miles per hour, though on trials Arminius reached 1,420 imperial horsepower and 11.2 knots, that's 12.9 miles per hour. The ship carried 171 tons, 168 long tons, 188 short tons of coal, which enabled a range of 2,000 nautical miles, 3,700 kilometers, 2,300 miles, at a cruising speed of 8 knots, 15 kilometers per hour or 9.2 miles per hour. As built, Arminius was equipped with a main battery of 4 rifled bronze 72-pounder cannon, but after delivery to the Prussian Navy, they were replaced with 4 Krupp 21 centimeters RK L19 of 20.95 centimeter or 8 inch in caliber. These guns were supplied with a total of 332 rounds and could elevate to 12 degrees. At maximum elevation, the guns could engage targets out to 2,800 meters or 3,100 yards. After 1881, 4 machine guns were installed, along with a single 35 centimeter or 13.8 inch torpedo tube mounted in the bow above the waterline. Arminius's armor consisted of wrought iron backed with teak plating. The conning tower was protected by 114 millimeters, 4.5 inches of wrought iron on 229 millimeters, 9 inches of teak. The armored belt ranged in thickness from 76 millimeters, 3 inches of iron on the bow and stern to 114 millimeters amidships, the entire length of which was backed by 229 millimeters of teak. The two turrets were armored with 114 millimeters of iron on 406 millimeters, 16 inches of timber. She was built by the Samuda Brothers shipyard in London as a speculative project, possibly to sell to the Confederate Navy. The ship was laid down in 1863 and was launched on the 20th of August, 1864. Prussia instead purchased the ship on the 20th of August, 1864 for some 1,887,000 gold marks, paid in part through public donations. The Prussians had hoped to secure the vessel by September, but the British government delayed delivery over the Second Schleswig War between Prussia and Denmark. As the British were sympathetic to Denmark, they prevented the ship from being delivered until after the war was concluded. At her launching, she was christened Arminius for the victor of the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest against the Romans in 9 CE. The name was chosen to evoke the common feeling of German unity at the time. Commissioning of the ship was delayed after the Prussian Naval Command decided to use the men who had been allocated to Arminius to commission the new screw, corvette Victoria, instead. This decision was in part made due to heavy ice in the Kieler Ford, which prevented Arminius from entering the port until April 4, 1865. Victoria arrived in London on April 20th with a second crew for Arminius, allowing her to be commissioned 2 days later. After entering service, the ship conducted initial sea trials, though her armament had not yet been fitted. On the 3rd of May, she and Victoria departed Britain. The two ships steamed across the North Sea and, after encountering severe storms, stopped at Skagen, Denmark, for shelter. They later stopped in Helsingør, Denmark, before arriving in Kiel on May 15th. She got underway on the 1st of June and steamed to Danzig, where she was decommissioned to have her guns installed. Along with the ironclad ram Prince Adalbert, Arminius was the first armored warship acquired by the Prussian Navy. Trials by fire from Austro-Prussian to Franco-Prussian War. Arminius would not have to wait long for its baptism by fire. She was reactivated in May 1866 under the command of Korvettenkapitän, KK Corvette Captain, Reinhold von Werner, initially to have work done on her gun turrets, but this was delayed as tensions between Austria and Prussia increased. Arminius received her mobilization order on the 12th of May, instructing her to depart for Kiel, which was at that time under Austrian control. The Prussians hoped that her presence would intimidate the Austrian commander, Lieutenant Field Marshal Ludwig von Gablenz. She arrived there on the 1st of June and anchored off the city's coastal fortifications 5 days later. The next day, Arminius was assigned to a squadron commanded by Konteradmiral Rear Admiral Eduard von Jachmann, which also included his flagship, the screw frigate Arkona. Arminius joined a flotilla of ships that were also being transferred from the Baltic Sea to join Jachmann's squadron in the North Sea. These included the Aviso Lorley and the gunboats Tiger, Cyclop, and Wolf. Werner was placed in command of the unit and given the title of Commodore. The ships got underway on June 12th and passed through the Danish Straits, the Skagerrak, and into the North Sea. The ships arrived in Hamburg, having covered a distance of some 940 nautical miles, 1,740 kilometers, 1,080 miles, in 100 hours, an impressive feat for an early ironclad warship. As the war had not yet started, the ships were first ordered to observe the movements of the Austrian Karlik Brigade in Holstein. The Prussians had learned from the Austrian military attaché in Berlin that the unit had orders to retreat to Hanoverian territory, namely Wilhelmsburg and Harburg, in the event of war. Unrest broke out in Altona, prompting Werner to send a landing party of 1 officer and 40 men ashore to secure the rail facility in the town. The Austro-Prussian War began on the 14th of June, and hostilities with Hanover began the following day. Without a naval threat from Austria, the Prussian Navy therefore concentrated its efforts against the Kingdom of Hanover. For the remainder of the conflict, Arminius operated out of Geestemünde under Werner's command, and the mere appearance of Arminius caused several Hanoverian coastal batteries to surrender. On the 15th of June, Arminius, Tiger and Cyclop covered the crossing of the Elbe River by General Edwin von Manteuffel and some 13,500 soldiers to attack the city of Hanover. The crossing took place in the span of 10 hours, and Werner's flotilla later covered the crossing of additional forces to support Manteuffel, including cavalry and artillery units. Arminius, Cyclop and Tiger sent men ashore at Brunshausen, where they spiked the guns of an abandoned coastal artillery battery. Werner then detached Tiger and Wolf to bombard the batteries at the mouth of the Elbe, while Cyclop was sent to attack the battery at Grauerort. Arminius entered the Elbe on the 17th of June, but heavy storms prevented her from intercepting a Norddeutscher Lloyd steamship that was carrying the Hanoverian gold reserves to Britain. The Prussian army, supported by Werner's flotilla, had succeeded in capturing all of the major fortifications guarding the Elbe, Weser and Ems by the 22nd of June, and other naval forces from the Baltic and Mediterranean Sea had arrived to further strengthen the Prussian fleet. Arminius and the other vessels thereafter patrolled the coast of Ostfriesland to show the flag. By the end of the month, the Prussian army had decisively defeated the Austrians at Königgrätz and ended the war. Following the signing of the peace treaty that formally ended the conflict, Werner's flotilla was disbanded on August 23rd and Arminius returned to Kiel. On the 3rd of October, the USS Mi Antonimo, a monitor of the US Navy, arrived in Kiel while on a promotional tour of European ports. She and Arminius raced the next day, and the latter was 2 knots faster than the American vessel. Arminius was decommissioned on the 20th of October and was only reactivated in 1867 for use as a gunnery training ship to support Thetis, since the latter lacked turret guns. In June, modernization work on the ship began in Kiel, but in September she had to be sent to Karlskrona, Sweden, to be dry docked and have her bottom cleaned. She returned to Germany in late November, where she was again decommissioned to allow work to resume. The overhaul included replacing her original rig with a lighter rigging with pole mast, a weather deck, which extended from just astern of the forward turret to her stern, was also fitted, and ventilators for the hull were extended up through the new deck. In 1870, the ship had her sailing rig removed altogether, as it had been determined that she could not be steered while under sail, and the masts blocked the firing arcs of the gun turrets. Work on the ship was delayed by accidents during sea trials, and the ship was not ready for active service again until shortly before the conflict with France. Just a few years later, the Franco-Prussian War erupted in 1870. Arminius once again took to the seas, this time facing a more formidable opponent in the French Navy. The Prussian Navy concentrated Arminius and the armoured frigates Kronprinz, Friedrich Karl and König Wilhelm in the North Sea Naval Base at Wilhelmshaven. Arminius received her mobilization order on the first day of the war, and at that point she was stationed in Kiel. She sortied on the 27th of July under the command of KK Otto Livonius to break through the French blockade by hugging the Swedish coast, which her shallow draft permitted. Her passage through Swedish territorial waters also protected the ship from French attack. The ship reached Cuxhaven on the 30th of July and proceeded to Wilhelmshaven on the 1st of August. Despite the great French naval superiority, the French had conducted insufficient pre-war planning for an assault on the Prussian naval installations and concluded that it would only be possible with Danish assistance, which was not forthcoming. Arminius and the 3 armoured frigates under the command of now Vice-Admiral Admiral Jachmann made an offensive sortie in early August 1870 out to the Doggerbank, though they encountered no French warships. The 3 frigates thereafter suffered from chronic engine trouble, which left Arminius alone to conduct operations. In the course of the war, she sortied from the port over 40 times. These also failed to result in major combat, though she occasionally traded shots with the blockading French warships. She briefly engaged a French frigate on the 24th of August, but the latter quickly withdrew. For the majority of the war, Arminius was stationed in the mouth of the Elbe, along with the Ironclad ram, Prince Adalbert and 3 small gunboats. The 3 armoured frigates remained off the island of Wangerooge, where their crews attempted to repair their troublesome engines. On the 11th of September, the 3 frigates were again ready for action. They joined Arminius for another major operation, though it too did not encounter French opposition. The French Navy had by this time returned to France. On the 18th of October, Arminius collided with the Aviso Falk, though she was not seriously damaged in the accident, though Falk was badly holed below the waterline. On the 23rd of December, Arminius and the rest of the ships stationed in Wilhelmshaven entered the inner harbour of the port, the dredging of which had recently been completed. The outer Jade Bay had iced over, preventing further operations for the winter. Shifting Sands, Coastal Guardian and Support Role. Following the war, the now German Kaiserliche Marine, Imperial Navy, began to demobilize in early 1871. On the 29th of March 1871, Arminius, the screw frigate Elizabeth and the Aviso Grill departed Wilhelmshaven for the Baltic. Severe storms delayed their progress and they reached Kiel on the 4th of April. Arminius was decommissioned there on April 27th. Beginning on the 1st of May 1872, the ship was used as a training vessel for naval engineers and boiler room personnel under the command of K.K. Philipp von Kahl. She also took part in shooting practice with the gunnery school before being decommissioned again on the 1st of October. She resumed school ship duties from April 16th to May 31st, 1873, from March 17th to mid-May 1874, and from March 15th to May 31st, 1875, which was to be her final commissioning. The ship was thereafter decommissioned and placed in reserve. Her ram bow allowed her to be used as an icebreaker in the Baltic in the 1880s. She was activated for that purpose in May 1881 to assist in clearing paths for vessels in Kiel. In 1882, she was extensively overhauled and then used as a tender for the cadet training vessel Blucher from August to November. In 1886, and again from January to July 1887, Arminius resumed her old training ship duties. Arminius was sent to the Flensburger Ford for icebreaking work from March to April 1888. The ship was rebuilt again later that year. During the refit, the propulsion system was overhauled and replaced with German-built equipment, and 2 searchlights were installed. 4 machine guns were installed, along with a 35-centimeter, 13.8-inch torpedo tube. She was reclassified as a special-purpose vessel on the 10th of October. She did not return to service, however, and was ultimately stricken from the Naval Register on the 2nd of March, 1901. Later that year, she was used in a weapons test with a new torpedo warhead, which caused considerable damage to the ship. She was thereafter sold to shipbreakers for 72,000 gold marks in 1902 and was towed to Hamburg to be broken up that year. Legacy of Iron, the end of an era. After nearly 2 decades of service, the ship was once a symbol of Prussian naval might. Its dismantling marked the end of an era, as the age of sail gave way to the dominance of steam and steel. Despite its relatively long service life, Arminius left a lasting legacy. It played a vital role in the development of the Prussian and later German navies, demonstrating the effectiveness of ironclad warships in combat. Arminius's story is a reminder of the rapid technological advancements of the 19th century and the constant evolution of naval warfare. Subscribe and keep learning. Knowledgeable Knight signing out.